Thanks for tuning in. My name's Andre Servin, and you're listening to Off the Roost podcast, brought to you by Off the Roost Custom Calls, turkey calls for the serious hunter. Join me and my co-host, Paul Murdahl, as we delve into the world of the wild turkey, covering everything from calling tips and tactics and hunting strategies to the latest equipment available, featuring interviews from special guests and custom call giveaways. We'll do our best to keep you up to date on this obsession we call turkey hunting. We appreciate you joining us. Now let's get on with the show. Hey, welcome everybody. You're listening to the Off the Roost podcast, and this is episode 9. As always, I'm here with my buddy Paul. Paul, how you doing?
Doing wonderful, as usual. This winter showed up for a couple days, and she's starting to fade back out again.
Oh yeah, you know what I was gonna say? I can promise you the turkeys were gobbling today, because when I left my house, the sun was out and the birds were chirping. When the birds start chirping, that's the first sign that spring is getting ready to move in, you know?
I seen the local pothole here just off the river that I drive by every day pretty much on the way to and from work was loaded with ducks on their way back north. So it had been since probably December was the last time I had seen ducks in there.
Yeah. And I know when I left my house, I was like, man, it's beautiful. And it reminds you a little bit that, like, you know, because where we live, the winters can be so intense, you know. When you start getting those little snippets of spring, it just reminds you of what's coming, you know.
Right. We've had that pretty much all winter, though.
It has been good, but I haven't heard the birds chirping because I think the birds weren't here, right?
Yeah, they're probably on the way back.
Yep.
You know, like I said, I was seeing the ducks.
Mm-hmm. And that's always a fun time too, man, that early spring. I have some fond memories of that because when I moved out here and I was doing my scouting for my first turkey season, it was, you know, during that time period, just when the snow was melting, the birds were coming back, and you know, the woods were still pretty bare and open, you know, and
yep.
It's a good time. But so where was I going with that? I will be doing some scouting tomorrow, and I haven't decided if I'm going to be going down to scout some turkey action or if I should go scout my deer area. What do you think? So the deer area closes at the end of the month.
Right.
But considering my limited or the times that I will be hunting this spring, I kind of want to go check out some like afternoon, midday hangout spots where I think the birds may be hanging out and get really familiar with those areas before the season comes in. And I figure if I go now, the birds aren't there yet.
Or supposedly not there yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And regardless, maybe if they are and you bump them right now, it might not affect it come April, you know?
Well, yeah, that, and if you bump them right now, it may have been the case they were going to be a mile away or 2 miles away anyways, come April.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Do I go check out the deer spot or do I go check out the turkey spot?
Deer hunting's like, what, 7 months from now?
It is, but there's a bedding area I want to tear apart. You know, I really want to get in there and learn the exits and all that stuff. But at the same time, I'm almost thinking...
Oh, always looking for new turkey spots.
Well, I'm thinking that with the deer spot, it could just be one of those, I'll just hunt it when the season begins and probably blow it, but I might be able to gather some good intel, you know. I might be able to watch them and see how they're accessing that area.
Right.
So
it's hard to say. I don't know. Yeah, it's normally when you're bow hunting them, you're thinking about for rifle hunting, getting set up for, or
A little bit of both, I guess. I kind of don't really do any gun scouting until maybe like a couple weeks before the season.
right.
But this area in particular, I kind of want to know about it because it's a good pre-rut spot. And I tell myself every year that I'm going to go in there and figure it out, but I haven't yet.
I guess what I keep thinking about is, are they going to be on the same type of behavioral patterns now as they would be in the fall? Using the same areas and stuff like that. And I guess the only way you'll know is by going and checking it out.
Well, I wouldn't be doing it to see what they're doing now. I would mainly be referencing sign from rut sign and stuff,
Right.
Like if it looked like, oh, that was from November or late October,
Yeah, I thought this was a turkey hunting podcast.
It is, but
yeah, almost making my stomach turn, all this deer talk.
All right, cool. You're right. And so since that's the case, let's go ahead and hop on back to turkeys.
So as we're getting into this, I got a question for you.
All right, what do you got?
So a little while back here, a couple months ago, I had asked you if you ever used your guitar picks for freeing up the reeds on your diaphragm calls.
Okay.
Hint.
Oh.
Guitar pick. Hint.
Yeah. Did you get one?
No, I haven't. I was just wondering if you've ever tried it.
No, I've heard of guys using plastic toothpicks.
Yeah, I do the toothpicks. I was just wondering because the guitar pick had a nice flat.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if it would be easier to
you probably wouldn't have
get
to
in there because
worry about ripping a reed.
Right, I'm always poking my reeds trying to separate them with the toothpick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you guys didn't get that, that was kind of a offhanded reference to the call giveaway.
Oh, hey, let's touch on that real quick.
Right.
So how does somebody enter?
See how I did that segue?
I like it.
Yeah, pretty nice, huh? All right, so the call giveaway here is to enter, you just got to answer the question, who played the guitar in the intro to the episodes here on our podcast. And if you were just paying attention here about 2 minutes ago, you'd have that answer. So once you get that answer, you just email it to us at
offtheroostpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. So you email that answer to us, and you'll put call giveaway in the subject line. And then the entry's got to be received by March 1st at 11:59 p.m. to give us time to process it so we can get the call out to you or announce the winners on the next episode that we're putting out. We've got the YouTube video up.
Yeah, go get in a little bit of detail about that for the listeners that haven't checked it out.
Right. So we got the YouTube video up, and it's just me kind of going over and, explain, the finish on the calls and kind of what they did. And I go over and play a few times, play them, some clucks and purrs and yelps, kind of go through them, kind of show you what they can do and whatnot.
It's a nice video. I like it.
Right.
It's not just you just cranking away. You're describing and explaining the calls,
Right.
And that channel's you just type in Off the Roost Podcast. That's kind of the title we got for everything, even TikTok, Off the Roost Pod.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if anybody's worried, it's going to be free shipping. I'm going to pay the shipping on anything. So if you're worried about getting stuck with the shipping bill on it, it'll be free shipping in the lower 48.
And that's for shipping purposes, folks.
Right.
Yeah, we've been getting some listeners in other countries. There's more. It's getting added to the list.
Well, I mean, they can be out of the country. They just got to have it shipped within the lower 48.
That's true. If they have sent it to their parents' house or something like that.
Right, or a friend or something.
Yeah. So there you go, folks, for the out-of-country listeners. If you want to go that route and you have a friend in the United States or family and you want to send it there, go ahead and enter. Cool. So let's talk about this episode we got coming up. And we have
I like calling him the Gobbling Champ, but he didn't win this specific number one this year. But we have Joe Slaton on, and Joe consistently is always placing within the top 3, and that's very impressive. And I know this year at the 2024 NWTF convention, he placed 3rd in the gobbling contest, and he also makes locator calls, mouth calls, box calls, all that stuff.
Right.
And
he had a call place.
He did,
first
yeah,
two, didn't he?
Yeah, and he won the Grand National Call Making Locator Division, which and it looks like an owl hooter. So
right.
Congrats, Joe.
Yep.
That's very awesome. But yeah, so this is a great episode. Joe kind of runs through his calls, runs through the gobbling. He kind of does a little demo and how to do the gobbling.
We run through a lot of stuff with Joe.
Yes.
This one.
Yep, and
pretty much runs the gambit.
Yep. He goes through all of his calls, and we talk a little bit of tactics and stuff. And Joe, which I didn't know about this, but Paul brought it up. Joe was experimenting when he was making his own decoys, and we kind of got into that a little bit too.
Yep.
And it's a good one, man. It's a good episode chatting with the Gobbling Champ from California. I'll refer to him that way.
One of your homeboys.
He's one of my homeboys. There you go. I like that. Cool. So, I guess with that said, Paul, anything you want to add to it?
Not that I can think of right now. The only thing I can think of is Mississippi non-resident drawing announcements will be on Thursday, I believe.
Okay, you know what?
21st.
Now that you mentioned that, I'm going to check Minnesota real quick, because Minnesota Wild Turkey. And they still have not posted their results, but that's okay. I put in for it, so.
Yeah. The one that gets me about the Mississippi is they don't let you know until like 3 weeks before the season opens, and how's most normal people, that don't live right across the border, supposed to get the time off and plan the vacation and stuff like that. And a 3-week period, I think it's shutting out a lot of people.
So you think it'd be better if it was?
I think it's geared. I think it's geared just for keeping the people around Mississippi happy and hunting. I think they're trying to keep it within that area states, and I mean that's the only reason why I could think, because there's no reason other than that to have the drawing just 3 weeks. You could have it in the middle of September if you wanted to. You give people time, because if you got a group of 5 guys that wants to go on a trip, or 3 guys, are they all 3 going to be able to get time off work, vacation, and get everything planned in a 3-week period? Mm-hmm. Who's going to take care of the kids and stuff like that? Yep. So it's something I just don't quite understand.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully you get it.
Yeah, right. So I was gonna say it won't bother me if I get drawn.
Yeah. Cool. So, with that said, this is episode 9. We got on Joe Slaton. Enter the box call contest. You'll be happy with whatever call you decide to go with. And let's all hope Paul gets picked for Mississippi so he can get out there.
Right.
All right, cool. Let's get into it.
Calling in competition since 1986. Won a few, lost a bunch. Then I started competing in the Grand National. I won the California State Championship in 91. That was the first year I won the state championship. And I went to the Grand Nationals, qualified for the Grand Nationals 3 years in a row, 91, 92, 93. And I competed at the Grand Nationals those 3 years. And then I didn't go for a while. And then I started going back around 2010, I think it was. And I started competing in the gobbling contest in 2012 and been competing there. I think I missed 2 or 3 years since then. But
Yeah, and then you won 2015 and 2022, right?
Yes, I won the Gobbling Championship 2015, 2022.
So you won twice and came in second 3 times.
Yes, and came in third 3 times.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Always in the top 3.
Yeah.
And how many times have you won the California competition?
I think it's 4. What happened in in 95, they stopped having a contest in California for years. And then they didn't come back till like maybe 2004 or 2006, somewhere in there. They had one. And then they had on and off. We haven't had one for another like 4 years, but we had them a couple years. I helped put them on for several years, and there wasn't a whole lot of interest. There was only just a few of us, me and a fellow by the name of Sean Hunkins, who was a California guy. He's moved now. He's in North Carolina, but him and I kind of tried to put them on for a while.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know me and you we were kind of speaking beforehand about you being a California guy, and I'm originally a California guy as well. So for me, man, you're kind of our guy. That's how I feel. You're our representative. Especially California is one of those places that in hunting in general, but turkey hunting in particular, doesn't really get mentioned a whole lot. So
don't mention it.
Yeah. So, but with that, I feel like you're my guy. So,
well, I'm just a turkey hunter. That's all. And I like to do everything that has to do with the turkey. I've raised turkeys since 1994, almost every year, on and off, but almost every year. So I've had turkeys here at my house.
When you say raising turkeys, what kind of turkeys?
Most of it's just general turkey, but I got some from a hatchery one year that were Rios.
Okay.
And I raised them for a while, and some raccoons got a hold of them. And it's it's a constant battle because everything wants to kill the turkey and eat it, So
yeah.
From the time they're a poult till the time they're grown.
Yeah.
If they can get caught, something will eat them. So.
And I'm curious to hear what your opinion is on this. And I've heard basically if a guy wants to get good at calling, that he should probably get himself a pet turkey.
Absolutely. The real thing is there's nothing like it. So if you want to learn how to sound like a turkey, get a real turkey.
Yeah.
Make your own mouth calls. There you go. And then you'll get better for sure.
Yeah, what I really like about being able to make your own mouth calls is the infinite adjustments that you can make. And I mainly kind of started doing that because, well, I guess, I got serious about the calling, and I don't know. When you're making your own, you can kind of garner it to your liking a little bit, and there's a lot of great calls out there, and I don't know, I guess I just kind of felt like in the progression of things, it was the next step for me,
I got a question for you, Joe. When you're raising your turkeys, I read somewhere that you actually made stuffer decoys. Is that true?
Yeah, cool. I did it for a few years, and I still have one in the garage right now, but I'd hardly ever use it. I hardly ever use decoys. We'll take one with us every once in a while, but with my granddaughter, I took it. We wanted to make sure it was, the best decoy or situation that the turkey would focus in on the decoy and not her. So,
right.
And it worked like a charm, let me tell you.
What I do with my dad when me and my dad, I don't use decoys, and when I get my dad out, just he's pretty fidgety and moves around a little bit and gets excited. So I get the decoy just to try to keep the gobbler's attention when it's on its way in, so he doesn't pick my dad off so much.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing better than an actual stuffer decoy. You can't imitate the actual feathers of a turkey. There's some good ones out there, but you just can't imitate it.
Okay, so I actually have some questions now. One is, I'm actually not too familiar with what a stuffer decoy is. Is this just a decoy that you're putting actual turkey feathers on?
No, it's a mounted turkey.
A mounted turkey. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You buy a styrofoam, some styrofoam for the neck, and put eyeballs in it and the whole bit. You take the whole body out, you skin it out, and then you dry the feathers and then put it around the actual styrofoam decoy with wires in his legs. And it looks like a turkey.
Yeah, looks like a real one.
It is really a turkey.
Yeah, so I was actually, I heard this or read this somewhere that part of the reason why, and this is when not using a decoy or using a rubber decoy or all the other different options that are available, sometimes, you can try to call a gobbler up to the ridgetop, and he's going to pop his head just kind of right over the crest and peek out on the top. That part of the thing with the iridescent feathers is sometimes they don't even really need to scan very well. Almost as if they're looking for the iridescence. They'll go up, they'll scan it, and if they don't see that iridescence, that's almost enough to get them to kind of be like, all right, I'm heading out of here. I didn't see anything. What's your opinion on that? Is that sound correct? Is that too extreme?
I'm not sure about the iridescence or whatever, but a turkey is known for just peeking his head up over the ridge and looking to see what he wants to see. And if he doesn't see anything, it's gone. And usually he's gone. But sometimes the decoy works pretty good in that situation if he's got something to look at. Sometimes it's a bad situation if it's not real enough for him to believe that it's an actual turkey. And then sometimes it actually helps because he thinks maybe the hen went down over the hill where he can't see, and he'll come on up further to try to get closer. But there's just all different kinds of theories. But they definitely will just do the peekaboo and check it out. And if they don't like something, they're gone.
Okay. So these stuffer decoys, are they jakes? Are they hens? Toms? Is it the whole? Do you got the whole thing, or what were you mainly putting out?
Mostly hens, but I've made a couple jakes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I have never had a turkey shy away from a stuffer hen. Never. Okay. Now, they don't always come to it, but I've never had them shy away from, and I've had them shy away from some good decoys, regular decoys, but I've never had them shy away from a stuffer. Like I said, they don't come in all the time, but they don't freak out and get scared and run away or anything like that.
Yeah, they're not afraid of it.
Because the hens will come in and want to beat the crap out of it. They'll peck the head. I've had them peck holes all in the top of the head while I'm waiting for a gobbler to come in, follow the hen in, and they just beat up my decoy. I had them stand on top of the decoy and paw at it. I've had some jakes paw all the feathers off. I was hunting with Dave Owens one year, and we called in these 3 jakes, and they're all around the decoy, and all of a sudden one of them pushed it over, and they got on top of it, and it just spread her wings completely out, and they just clawed the decoy, and the feathers were everywhere. She was pretty much ruined.
Wow. Well, when that was happening, were you kind of bummed out about that? Were you kind of like, my decoy? No.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually fixed her up, put her wings back on, because it actually pulled one of the wings off. I had to actually put the wing back on, and they can lose a lot of feathers and still look pretty good once you put everything back together. So that's interesting though. I'm curious, why would the jakes beat up a hen? What's the idea behind that? The jakes weren't beating up the hen; they were breeding. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, they knocked over and started getting on top of her, just pawing at her, trying to breed her.
Yeah, just kind of went nuts.
So, yeah,
that's cool. How was it hunting with Dave Owens?
It was great. Yeah, that was before he had Pinhoti Project.
Yeah, he's quite the caller too.
Oh yeah, that was before he won his first Grand Nationals. Mm-hmm. But he came to California. He was doing the U.S. Slam,
Yep.
And he killed a turkey with me, and then left the next day and drove to Nevada. He had a Nevada tag. And one day he killed his Nevada turkey and then drove towards Oregon, I think it was, or somewhere.
Wow.
He was going somewhere else.
When I first started turkey hunting, I'd take trips down to northern Georgia, and I'd actually be hunting. I was hunting not too far away from where Dave grew up.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd be hunting on the Pinhoti Trail, actually, right there. I'm pretty sure that's probably one of the reasons where he got his name from.
Yep.
And I know from the stories you've kind of told me, that's kind of like where you cut your teeth, huh, Paul?
Right. I spent a good deal of time there, say my first 10 years at turkey hunting.
Yeah. What's interesting is me and Paul, we joke because I've never killed a bird over a decoy. I always have a decoy with me in my vest, and it's just a cheap foam mossy oak decoy, and I don't really use it. I actually can't really think of a effective time that I've used it, because there's times I'll get set up and do some blind calling, and then a bird gobbles behind me, so it's like, all right, well, now I got to turn around, and the decoy's over there. But Paul jokes that it's my security blanket, and I told him, I'm like, it kind of is, because it's one of those things where I'm not going to use it, but I just kind of like knowing it's there in case I feel like I need it. But
Yeah.
I mentioned that because I heard you were saying about gobblers that have shied away from other decoys that were maybe not so realistic, but these stuffer decoys, they seem to not have shied away from that. So in your opinion, you think I got to get something better than those foam fold-up decoys?
When a turkey wants to come in, he'll come in no matter whether you have a decoy or not or whatever. And when he doesn't want to come in, a lot of times he ain't gonna come in no matter what you do. But sometimes you can coax them in with a good decoy. And most of the time, if I'm going to use one, it's because I have a camera and I want to get more video, and that takes the attention away from. Or if I have a young hunter, it takes the attention away from the caller, which is usually me, and more focused out on the decoy or whatever. So it just depends on what you like, how the way you want to hunt or whatever. But like when I go out of state and that kind of stuff, I don't ever take a decoy with me.
With the bird shying away from your decoy, Andre, it may be just the actual gobbler. It may be his status in the flock. He may be a subordinate. So
right,
he's going to be a little iffy about coming in to a decoy. Whether it's a jake or not, he just could maybe shy away and fade off. Where if it was the dominant or a gobbler with higher status within the flock, he'd probably come walking right in, storming right in, and show him who's boss.
Yeah. If he's been beat up enough, he gets pretty shy away from, pretty much any other turkey.
Well, so I can't confirm if there's been any sort of visual of a tom that was coming in and saw my decoy and didn't come in. But where my whole kind of fear comes from is I got set up, I roosted a bird, and he was in a tree over a field, and I got set up across the field. It was maybe 80 yards across. So I imagine by the time he pitches down, he'll be almost within range, and I was hoping to maybe call him in an extra 10 and seal the deal. And he did. He flew out. He landed at about 60 and started strutting, and I just watched that bird just strut out of my life. And I know, looking back on it, I'm like, man, if I would have had a decoy in that field, he would have at least come in within shooting range. And then there was another time where, I'm calling to a bird, and I had the bird go. It was interesting, too. He went from the timber into the open field and started gobbling in the field, which, it kind of makes sense. It's kind of like, maybe he came looking for me. He didn't find me. He does want the hen. So he goes into the field where he's open. It's visual. And now he's calling in the field, kind of like, hey, I'm over here. But guess what? I didn't have a decoy with me. I did try maneuvering around that bird.
As Mayfield says, he was going to the stage.
Exactly. And so, what ended up happening, man, was because I wasn't ready at the stage, I think he got nervous, and I heard him just kind of, his gobbles got further and further as he moved onto the private property.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Joe. How often do you include the gobbling into your hunting routine?
I usually as a last resort type thing, unless I get into a situation where I know the turkey and I know he's very aggressive and he wants to fight and that kind of stuff, then I'll challenge gobbling. But I'm really careful with when I do it and how often I do it. I've called in people, you know, my son and I laugh. We were hunting in Oregon one year, and we were sitting up on this ridge, and we had this turkey gobbling to us. Well, these guys pull up in a vehicle. They hear the turkey gobble. We're on one ridge, and the turkey's on the other. We were going to that turkey. When these guys pull up in a vehicle, they hear the turkey gobble, and they start walking after him. Well, yeah, I kept calling. The turkey kept gobbling. I was hoping to bring the turkey across from without them guys shooting it. Well, all of a sudden the turkey went quiet. He shut up, never said another sound, never said another word. And then we seen the guys turn around and start walking back to their truck. And as they're walking back to their truck, I gobbled at them. And they got all excited, and they were putting their stuff in their truck. They actually put their stuff back on, and they were getting their guns all ready, and they were heading up towards us.
That's great.
And I gobbled 2 or 3 more times, and then I just kept walking, going away, and I kept gobbling the whole time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Do you think that bird maybe saw those guys?
Oh, they spooked him, guaranteed.
Yeah.
They didn't shoot. So
What type of call are you normally doing your gobbles on? Are you using a bob?
I have a call that I make for a gobble. I can gobble on almost any call, but I have one that I call a gobble call. It's a split V. It's not a split V, actually. It's kind of a turkey foot cut, kind of like that. And it's a 3-reed call.
Okay, so it's a diaphragm.
Right, diaphragm.
I was under the impression that you were doing it with a tube call.
No.
So we're in for a real treat here then.
Tube calls would never come even close on the stage.
Okay.
You can gobble on a tube call if you're turkey hunting.
Yeah.
They make a good enough gobble to call in a turkey that that way or whatever. But as far as competing wise or any of that kind of stuff, no, it's a mouth diaphragm.
Okay, cool.
I was actually a couple years ago, I was messing around and trying to tune one of my goose calls.
Uh-huh.
And I had it out of tune, and when I went to blow on it, I went, you know what that sounds like?
Yeah.
So then I started doing some gobbles on it, and I thought it sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
I took it up to the local park up here where we got some turkeys that hang in the woods around the park. And I had set my phone in the tree, and I walked away, 35 yards just over a little rise, so I could see what it actually sounded like in the woods away from where the phone was. And I gobbled a few times, and I had the dog running around and whatnot. And all right, let's go back and get the phone and see what it sounds like. So I get back to the car, and I start listening, playing back the recording. And I could hear myself gobbling in the background, and it sounded pretty good. But then all of a sudden I hear a hen clucking. Buck, 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 buck. So she must have liked it too, because she come up and walked underneath my phone, and I think the dog ended up chasing her away. And I never seen her. I never even knew she was there till I listened to the recording.
So it was kind of like the Hank call that was made several years ago. Is that what it was?
I think it was I think it was a polycarbonate short reed, and I can't goose call, and I forget who the maker was.
Oh.
And it turns out, there you go.
That's my owl hooter.
Wow, you could do it with an owl hooter too, huh? That sounds really good. Do you sell those on your website?
Yeah, I sell owl hooters.
Okay, and then what's that, Paul? You were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I was only able to use it a couple times before I ended up losing it. Right? I didn't actually get to figure out how well it worked.
You need a lanyard. Put that baby on a lanyard. Tie it to you.
I had it in my pocket of my vest, and I was in a hurry, and I left my pocket open, and I'm guessing when I was ducking under some branches or something, it fell out.
Was that in Mississippi?
No, that was in Wisconsin.
Well, since we kind of got you on the topic, would you mind doing a little demonstration for us with your award-winning gobble, Joe?
Gobble call? Sure. So this is the gobble call that I make,
Okay.
that I gobble with.
Okay. And is this
It's got,
is this
Go
is
ahead.
this call available on your website? Do you make that, or this is your
Yes.
own? Okay.
This is my own, but yeah, I make them. I have them on the
Okay.
website. It says gobble on it. Gobble
Okay.
call.
Dang. That's amazing.
Right.
I mean, it'd probably fool me, man.
Then when you put a cone to it,
Right.
it gives it a little more volume, and it just gives it a deeper tone, more like a gobbler.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm hunting, I actually have a little tube that I actually gobble into, but I don't take a cone or anything like that. And I've gobbled up turkeys. I've killed turkeys. Matter of fact, some of the biggest turkeys I've ever killed, I killed because I gobbled at
For
them,
sure.
and they came to me. Yeah,
That makes sense.
Mhm.
biggest spurred turkey that I ever killed, 1 3/4 spurs in Missouri. I gobbled at it. There was 5 different gobblers that were out there fighting and doing different things. And then they had pretty much established who was the winner, and I gobbled at them, and 2 of them came right to me, and I ended up killing one, the one that was strutting, and it had 1 3/4 spurs.
Wow.
So, but
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's awesome. Yeah, especially once you add that to it, it totally changes the thing. And I bet you in the woods, you could fool a guy 100% with that for sure. You know what's funny? You mentioned Missouri. Me and Paul, our experience is Missouri's got a bunch of mean turkeys. Yeah, it's a mean bunch out there, because I know I heard one turkey beat the crap out of another turkey, and it was in the same little pasture that Paul kind of had that same experience with the bird out there. So we were kind of cracking jokes about that bird. We're joking that bird, like you were saying, like an inch, and you said 1 3/4 spurs. Those are some big spurs, man. So
and that would be the type of turkey that I would gobble
yeah.
at. If you've seen them beat up other turkeys, and whatever has all the hens
Mhm.
or whatever situation, I'd get in as close as I can, and I'd gobble at that
For
turkey.
sure.
Yeah.
So would you recommend for a guy that learning how to gobble is probably something you want to kind of add to your toolbox?
Every tool that you can have will make you a better turkey. I mean,
Yeah.
we all, at least me, I won't say all, I've got stuff in my turkey vest that I don't need, hardly ever use, all that kind of stuff, but it's there in case I might need it. And I just try to be proficient with all the different type of calls, because I've had turkeys that would gobble to a mouth call, but I pull out a pot call or glass call and they'll gobble, or pull out a box
Yeah.
call and man, they'll ring. Same
Mhm.
thing with trumpet. I've had not gobble to anything, and I knew there was a turkey there. Within 100 yards, and he wouldn't gobble for nothing. I pulled the trumpet out, yelped one time on the trumpet, and he gobbled.
I love it.
Get back to the gobble that you were doing. Why don't you walk us through the mechanics that you're using to get that sound out of that call? I mean, what are you doing with your tongue? I would imagine you're bringing the air up like you would a normal diaphragm. Are you like saying words into it, or are you going like ticka 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 or something? You got something that you're doing?
Yeah, you're doing the ticka ticka thing like a duck call,
Right.
call. I actually have a little video that I did many, or probably more than 10 years ago, on my YouTube page, that has me showing you how to actually do the gobble. And you start out with ticka 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 ticka. I practice a lot, driving down the road and that kind of stuff, without a mouth call, just by going, because you're making a chamber in your mouth, and still going through the sound that you would do if you had a mouth call in. because it's hard on a call because you're forcing a lot of air through the reeds at one time, and putting a lot of pressure on it. So they don't last a long time. I mean, you're not going to have a 10-year-old gobble call, mouth call. It just ain't going to happen if you're gobbling on a lot, So so you're going ticka 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 ticka, and I've actually timed it for years on how long a turkey takes to gobble, how many rolls does he have, and a lot of times when people start to gobble, they'll run those together, and it'll be, it's more like they don't get the. They run those actual notes together, and it just doesn't sound that good. It's when you get the roll that the turkey has. You watch it, you look at a slow motion video of a gobbler's mouth when he's gobbling, and he's going gobble, 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 gobble. I mean, it's doing those rolls with each note, and that's what I try to put into the call. So
right. So now you break down the gobble. Each individual note of the gobble, would you like say that might be like a yelp and he's just putting a bunch of yelps together, and you want to be able to hear each individual yelp say throughout the gobble? Is that
pretty much each one of those rolls is an actual gobble note, and so you want those separated, not run together.
Yeah, I love that, man. It seems like you've put in your effort for sure to break down the dynamics of what a gobble is, and obviously that's what makes yours so good. And I to kind of back your point about what most guys are doing, because I know, at least for me, it's what I'm doing. It's something that happens so fast to get good at doing that role. I feel most guys basically go, I'm going to try to ticka 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 as fast as I can, and it does just come out as some sort of blur thing, and they just go, oh, well, kind of good enough, At least for me, that's what I was doing, and my excuse for it, I was like, it's a Jake, That's why it wasn't so good. So hopefully the bird thinks it's a Jake. But yeah, and I do think, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah,
and you don't have to be that precise to fool a turkey. You really don't. If you get pretty close to that, you're going to call on turkey. That has to be done on stage when you're trying to sound like a turkey.
Yeah.
And so,
Right. Do you use the gobble? Do you use it to like locate roosted gobblers in the evening to try to put in a roost? Where you fire up a gobble or something like that to try to get something stirred up?
It's not my go-to. Usually, especially if I'm hunting at home, I know where the turkeys are going to roost, or they're gobbling like crazy before they even fly up in the tree. But when I'm hunting out of state, usually go to the owl call. I usually try to get them to gobble to an owl hoot. But the same year that I killed that 1 3/4 turkey in Missouri, I was trying to roost some turkeys, and most of the turkeys won't gobble at night or whatever. But I guarantee you, if I'm 2,000 miles away, I'm going to be out in the afternoon trying to roost turkey no matter what. And so I was owl hooting. I was pretty confident there was turkeys there. I hadn't seen a turkey there yet, but I was pretty confident there was turkeys there. And I owl hooted several times. Regular owls started hooting back at me, started flying over towards me, and we were hooting back and forth. Nothing. And I'm like, before I leave, I'm going to gobble at this turkey. I'll gobble here just to see. And I gobbled, and a turkey gobbled back to me about 300 yards away. And I'm like, okay, there's a turkey here. I knew there was a turkey here. We came back the next morning. There were 7 different turkeys gobbling.
Right.
But he gave away his position, and so we got set up on him, and there were 7 different turkeys gobbling the next morning.
I love it.
I can relate, but not using the gobble. I'd be, there's a number of times where I'd be sitting, at sundown trying to locate a turkey, and I'd hit my owl hoots and I'd hit my coyote call, and fly up time would come and go, and it'd be like, oh, there's nothing over here, and I'd be back there in the morning, bright and early, And when gobble time showed up, there'd be 2-3 gobblers not 100 yards away from me where they had roosted it, and I never heard anything out of them. Never heard a call, never heard wings fly up, never heard nothing. It's amazing how they can do that sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to make them do it, Don't give them an option.
Needed one of Joe's gobble calls in my pocket is what I needed.
That's right. So I have a question. When it comes to doing these, okay, so I imagine you tried an owl call. I don't know if you did a coyote before you tried the gobble. On average, how much time is in between before you try doing these things? Like the switching it up. Do you got to give it like a few minutes, I guess, before you kind of switch it up?
I usually do.
Yeah.
I don't blow on an owl hooter, and if it doesn't gobble, nothing gobbles at it, use a mouth call and coyote call. I usually give it a few minutes. Yeah. Sometimes I'll even actually change a little bit and either call a different direction or move away a little bit, just to separate myself so you're not stuck in the same place and they're hearing different sounds from the exact same spot.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm sure in some more heavily pressured areas, they're used to that, Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So I was doing a little bit of reading, and your turkey call company is Motherlode Turkey Calls, correct?
Yes, Motherlode Turkey Calls.
And if anybody wants to purchase one, they could just go to your website and buy anything they need there, correct?
Yep.
What do you got there? What do you got on the site, Joe?
I make mouth calls. I think I have 7 different types of mouth calls. And then I make pot calls. I make tube calls. I make trumpets. I make box calls and owl hooters and crow calls.
I've been dabbling in the box call making here a little bit myself here the last maybe about a year.
That's one of my box calls that I make.
Here's the one. Here's the one that I got.
Nice. Well, let me hear it.
This is what we're able to get out of them so far.
There you go. It's got a good rollover. That'll kill a turkey.
Right. I had it in the woods a little bit last year. I'm not very good at playing them.
Oh yeah.
The first box calls I've been playing would be this one here. I grew up with, or started out with my grandpa's old Lynch.
Yeah.
But people had messed with it so bad that it didn't sound very good, so I never really used it. I'm kind of learning to play them and learning to make them at the same time.
Nice.
Right.
Joe, would you mind, I guess, give us a little bit a demo of the calls that you make. Give the listeners a kind of an opportunity to kind of hear your calls, get a little sneak peek of what they may be in for, what they may like, and maybe go on and get one themselves. It's really interesting too that you make that wide variety of calls. Some call companies only do mouth calls or box calls or pot calls, but you seem to do other ones too, and that's really cool.
Yeah, when I started out, I wanted to try to be proficient as I could when on all the different types of calls that makes turkey sounds. So when I started making calls, I'm like, I might as well start making everything that sounds like turkey. So that was what I did. Yeah. This is Bloodwood over American Chestnut.
Where are you getting your chestnut from, Joe?
I got that off Steve Brown. It's actually a wormy American chestnut. You see the holes in it?
Yep.
This come from I think it was 100-year-old barn in Missouri somewhere. No, I think it was maybe Illinois.
Okay.
Something like that. But it's got some character to it. It's got a bunch of different holes in it and stuff.
So I would imagine, if you get a, like a wormy chestnut or a chestnut call, it's got to be from some type of reclaimed wood, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is glass over glass. It's a laminated pot. It's got walnut, zebra, paddock, and cherry. And I got a matching striker top with it with a diamond wood striker. Got a tube call. It's a walnut tube call I make.
I'm not familiar with the tube calls. How are you placing that to your mouth?
So it's got a piece of latex across the top of it, and I put the inside part of my lip against the latex, and then you blow the air between your lip and the latex.
All right.
I rest the top of my lip on the top part of the rim of the latex there.
So you're putting just a slight angle on it then, compared to where your mouth is. It's tipped back maybe a little bit towards your mouth, maybe, or are you holding that straight out?
It's pretty straight right here. But your lip fits down inside that groove. Your lip kind of pushes against the latex right in there. It goes up against it. And then you just pull your bottom lip away from the latex, and you get. Same thing you would do with your tongue on a mouth.
Right.
So.
I got a few questions about that call. I do have one myself, but it's not wood. It's like plastic or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
It doesn't sound anywhere near as nice as yours. I hear those are good locator calls.
You can locate with them, yeah. Because Strickland used tube calls for years by just doing a cutting at turkeys, and getting a gobble.
So are those pretty effective out west?
Oh yeah.
Because I imagine they're much louder than like a diaphragm call,
they are
right?
Loud, exactly. That's why, and a lot of times out west, you're in a lot more open country than you are back east or whatever. So, yeah, anything that can, reach out there pretty far, you have a good chance of getting a gobble back to it.
Getting into the locating part, like Andre was saying, he was wondering if you located with that call. Most people when they're talking locating, they talk box calls and pot calls as far as using turkey calls for locating. But from what I understand, one of the calls you make, the trumpet call, is supposed to be like the pinnacle, because the way it sends the air out, in the one direction, that it reaches out farther.
Yeah.
Than most normal calls.
There's just something about a trumpet that the sound travels further. It's just got a deeper tone to it, and the turkeys just react to it for some reason. So,
and that's one of your trumpets, right?
Yeah, that's one I made the other day.
Cool.
It's called. That's Osage.
I was going to say that looks like Osage.
It's mud cured Osage. It's green right here in this little area.
So what does mud cured mean?
That means the actual log or tree, Osage tree, was in most of the time either mud or water or river or swamp or something like that. And it sucked the minerals up inside the tree that got into the minerals got into the bark of the tree or into the main part of the tree, and it just discolored the actual yellow. That's supposed to be, it's Osage is yellow like that.
Right.
I've got some other ones just straight yellow, and then it just sucked up the minerals into it. And this stuff is like gold, though. It's hard to get a hold of. It costs an arm and a leg. But
so now
it's
Osage,
beautiful.
Are you familiar with mulberry wood?
Uh-huh.
So does the Osage, is it like the mulberry where it starts out, bright yellowish, and then as it oxidizes or UV rays get on it, it darkens up, or is The Osage is
No, Osage. No, if you bite just hedge or Osage, it's just going to be yellow.
so it's going to be the color that you got, and it's going to
Exactly.
stay that way.
Well, I mean, this is completely finished, and that's what color it is. That's what color it comes out. They're bright yellow. It's a bright yellow color, and it doesn't change colors by. I know what you're talking about, by the sunlight or whatever will change colors on it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. That color in there is actually sucked in through the wood. So when I was drilling it out, it was all nice and green, right? All the shavings were nice and green, and all of a sudden it started turning yellow. All the stuff was yellow. So
Sure.
Joe, how long have you been building calls for?
I started building mouth calls in 2005. And then I actually started making calls 2010. I started my business in 2010. I started making calls before that, but that was 2010 was when I started my business. But I also make owl hooters. And then I make mouth calls. I got, like I said, several different types of mouth calls. You heard the gobble call.
That's got some good rasp to it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
What kind of cut is that, Joe?
That's a V cut.
V cut?
Yeah.
Is that your
Paul's a
your
V cut
go-to
guy
cut?
too.
Is a V cut?
Actually, I've been using
Cutter.
Yeah. So that's the one I use most of the time. But this depends on what I'm trying to do. I also use a ghost cut quite a bit, especially in the fall, because I use a lot of keys in the fall. You can still yelp with the ghost cut, but I don't like doing any kind of cutting or fly down or anything like that on a ghost cut. I don't sound as good. But
that yelp actually sounds pretty. It's unique compared to what you did with the other one. It's a different yelp. It
is different.
Actually, I actually like it.
Yeah.
That key was perfect.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I was gonna ask, so of all your calls, man, if somebody was interested in getting one, which of the calls in your lineup that you make, what would you recommend to them to try out?
I think it depends on what kind of a hunter you are. If you're just starting out, I believe if you're just starting out, you need a mouth call, you need a pot call, and you need a box call. Because on a box call, it doesn't take long just to learn how to slide the lid over to the center. With a few minutes, a couple hours, you can get the rhythm of a turkey. You can call turkey in with yelps like that. Same thing with a pot call. A little bit, all you're going to do is, if you get the angle of the striker correct, if it's too far that way, it doesn't make sound. If it's straight up and down, don't make very good sound. But if you get the right angle, and then, just few days, few weeks learning on a pot call, you can make it start sounding pretty good, good enough to kill a turkey. And then you have the mouth call that's going to take you a lot longer than either one of those. But the difference between those and this is that
hands-free.
And most of the time you're not calling to a turkey when he gets in close enough to shoot anyway. So you have time to put the box call down or the pot call or whatever, and get ready to shoot. But if he's out there just out of sight and he's there, you can hear him spitting and drumming, but he's hanging up, and you're already, rather than chance trying to move and get a call to make another call and, just go, and you're already sitting there with your gun up,
Right.
So it makes a big difference.
Or even just to stop him and get him to raise his head up.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
So with your box call and the pot call, do you only make one model or do you have multiple?
No, I make multiple different types.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which of your box calls do you recommend? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I was thinking after I said that,
Well, these are all custom boxes. I start off with blocks of wood and cut them all down and then, hew them out with hand tools. So each one is, in other words, I don't make like a walnut and poplar box call, and you can get that on a website or whatever. It's just every one of them is different. Every one of them's, what I would recommend if you're going to pick a call out, especially a box call or a pot call, if you can get to a place or a show where you can actually pick it up and handle it, that's going to be your best bet. It's hard to buy something over the internet or in a box that you're not able to use. But if you can get somewhere where, you got a table full of calls and you can pick one up and call on it and pick another one up and call on it, you're going to have a better chance of picking up a call that fits you the best,
Right. I would imagine, with the wood and the call makers and whatnot, the variables are pretty great where you're not going to pick up one call and another call and they're going to have made of the same wood and they're probably not going to sound the exact same, even from the same builder.
Nope, they will not, because the wood is different. And even in a tree, the difference in the wood from here to here is different. So if you got a cut out of that piece of wood, each ends of those pieces of wood are going to be different. You know what I mean? So
even the way the grain is laying within the box call too.
Exactly.
So your box calls, they're made to order then?
I usually have some that I've already made that are, that I have on the website. I think I have matter of fact, I think it's bloodwood and black limba is the pitch of the one that I have on there. But if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can, just write me a note or whatever and say, I'm looking for this type of call, or what do you recommend, or whatever. Or they can get a hold of me on Facebook. I do a lot of stuff on Facebook where a lot of times I'll make a call and call on it and, post it on Facebook and people will say, hey, I want that call. So
awesome.
I would imagine, if somebody's looking, say like they're going for Merriam's out in California or out west or something, they're looking for a higher pitch call. I would imagine there's certain wood combinations that lend themselves a little better to getting the higher, crisper sound for Merriam's, and other wood combinations that are going to be maybe a little deeper, a little raspier for like an Eastern or something.
Yep, exactly.
Joe, I was going to ask, and it seems like people kind of have different opinions on this, but I'm curious to hear what yours is. When it comes to the box calls or any call that you're going to use, have you noticed, is there a preference, or is it better to have, for example, a higher pitched call when you're hunting Western birds? Or can you go out there with a box call that somebody's using in Tennessee and go out west and use that same box call? Is there a difference there with the birds, the way they respond to those calls?
I think a higher pitch call out west is more effective because I think it reaches further and we have more open area. Some of the land that we hunt here in California, most of the western states, is pretty open woods. So you want a call that's gonna carry as far as you can get it to carry, and usually a higher pitch call will carry like that. And it seems to be the Rios and the Merriams have a little higher pitch anyway with the hens, but it's not like if you've got a raunchy, box call from Tennessee, that it won't work out west. It'll work. I mean, it's just you got to maybe get closer to the turkey so they can hear it. But a turkey's a turkey. They don't know they live in South Dakota. They don't know they live in Tennessee, and they hear. They think, oh, here we go, another girl.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't think it matters.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was always kind of curious about that.
We kind of got into that with the guests we had on a previous episode, and he pretty much confirmed what you just said there.
Yeah.
He thought the higher pitch and why the birds were possibly higher pitched was because he thought it was going to travel farther in the conditions out there.
Yep.
Joe, I want to talk a little bit about Western hunting in California, but just kind of Western hunting in general. What is, I guess I've always been curious, what's the public land situation out like over there in California? Is a lot of the hunting over there predominantly kind of done on private property, or does a guy kind of have some good options with public land?
There's minimal options with public land in California. There's only a few areas that have public land. Some of the areas around some of the lakes because of the high water mark and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, most of California's turkeys are on private property. That's just a fact. It's almost like Texas, where there's not a whole lot of public land access to hunt turkeys. There's a few wildlife management areas that are a draw for the first couple weekends, and then it opens up to the public, and then you have access. But it's still, for the amount of people that we have and the amount of hunter we have, there's not a lot of public land.
I wasn't out there turkey hunting, but I was in California and in the mountains, and I know where there's a few turkeys, I think, on public land. But I also know where there's a lot of poison oak.
You're gonna find some poison oak around.
It's right in there where them turkeys are right in there with that poison oak.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I snuggled up against a bunch of poison oak setting up on a turkey.
Are you allergic to it?
I'm not. The only time I've really gotten it was during the fall when it's pretty much dormant and there's no leaves on it. And I was on a bear hunt and I was grabbing it, pull myself up this mountain that was straight up, and got it on my hands. But I'm not really allergic to. I have a little spot every once in a while here or there, but I usually don't even look at it. I just get down and sit down right in amongst it.
I'm pretty much getting it every spring.
You're one of those guys, huh?
Yeah.
If you can see it, you're getting it, huh?
Yeah. I'm getting it every spring. I actually, last year when I was down south at the beginning of the year, I had to go to doctor on demand in order to get me a prescription to take care of it when I was on my trip down there. And I got it like the third day of my trip, the second day of my trip, and I was there for like 2 weeks. So
in California when you were here?
No, this was down south in Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
So I had to fight it for pretty much the whole time I was down there.
Ow. That's no fun.
No.
So, Joe, how do you go about finding birds?
Where am I hunting?
Just Western anywhere out west, I guess. What's your tactics for that?
The one that's about Western turkeys is you're usually hunting Rios or Merriams, and they like to gobble. Our turkeys are gobbling before it gets dark, and they're gobbling an hour before it gets daylight. So it's not like you have to make them gobble or anything like that.
Okay.
I have seen on occasion where turkeys that are hunted pretty hard. Now in California, I was telling you about some of the waterways around the lakes. I was actually roosted a turkey the night before the season opening day, and this turkey had 7 hens, and he was by gobbler, had 7 hens, and so I got in and snuck in and sit down. Well, a guy came in on a boat. I camped not far from there, so I was actually on the turkey way before dark, way before daylight. And the guy came in on a boat, and I could see the turkey in the tree. It was just getting light enough to see, and I'd already roosted him the day before, so I knew where he was, and I could see the turkey in the tree, gobbler in the tree. And the guy pulls in the boat, stops, I don't know if he got out of the boat, but he called from the boat. Turkey didn't make a sound. Called 2 or 3 more times. Turkey never made a sound. He got in the boat and he took off. And just as he was getting out of sight, the turkey gobbled.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I watched the whole thing. You know, nobody knew I was around. The turkey didn't know. The hunter didn't know. Nothing. And I watched the whole scenario play out. And that turkey had that done to him many times.
Right. That turkey's played that game before.
Yeah, something. So
I imagine when that was happening, when the guy came up and you heard the call, you were probably like, "Oh man,
yeah,
you can't be serious."
I hope he don't
man.
mess me up. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure if that bird would have gobbled, he would have pulled that boat over, and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah. Funny story. I was hunting in Alabama, probably 15, 20 years ago, and had the almost exact same scenario. We had roosted a turkey the night before. And so they dropped me off. It was in some paper company land. I had a friend that lived down there, and there was 3 of us hunting, and they were going to drop me off because we roosted this one turkey and they were going to go somewhere else. And so anyway, I get in, I set up hour before daylight. I'm sitting under this turkey. I know where he's at. I'm within 100 yards of him. And as it starts getting early in the morning, it's just starting to break blue. I hear this truck come up. He stopped, owl hooted, turkey never made a sound. He drives 200 yards, stopped, owl hooted, turkey never made a sound. The road turned and went up above us. He stopped directly above the turkey, less than 100 yards, owl hooted, turkey never made a sound. He drove around the mountain. Just as he was going out of sight, he stopped again, owl hooted, turkey never made a sound. He drove off. 5 minutes after he drove off, the turkey gobbled in the tree.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's, and that actually, it's interesting too. That was actually going to be kind of one of my next questions, is when it comes to kind of locating, how you were saying that some of these Western birds, how they're already gobbling. I was going to ask, okay, so if a guy shows up to a new area, can he maybe kind of start driving the roads an hour before and maybe doing what that guy did? But it sounds like some of these birds, depending on the pressure, will maybe not say anything, and something that you've kind of experienced firsthand, huh?
Yeah, if a bird's pressured, they're going to be pressured. They're going to be hard to hunt. I get asked all the time, what's the hardest turkey to hunt? The hardest turkey to hunt is the turkey that's hunted the hardest. And that's just over the whole country. It doesn't matter where he lives. But for the most part, Rios like to gobble and Merriams like to gobble. And when we're out west and we're running from spot to spot to spot, that's how I usually try to roost. Is, I'll drive and call, and I'll coyote call out west. And, listen for turkeys to gobble. Most of the time they're gobbling before we even try to get them to gobble. But, but we do try to get them to gobble with a coyote call. So,
okay. So if a guy's doing that, he's driving the roads, he's hitting a coyote call, and he's not really getting any responses. He's casting the call out in the valleys with multiple ridge points. Is it a safe bet to, at least maybe for this trip, to maybe kind of move on to another ridge system, another valley, and give it another go?
It depends. If I'm seeing sign, if I'm seeing tracks in the road, or dusting or feathers or anything like that, I know there's turkeys in the area, then I'll slow down and get away from the vehicle, get up on a ridge somewhere, climb up on a ridge and just listen and try to roost that way. But if there's no sign, no nothing, I'm going to go until I start seeing turkeys, hearing turkeys, seeing signs, seeing a lot of signs. I know there's turkeys in the area. Then I slow down and, progress slowly after that,
Right.
For sure.
The way you're talking, I mean, it might be a good idea for Andre. He drives his roads. But when he gets out of the car, he doesn't call. He just sits there and listens.
Yeah.
So when you're, I guess when you're looking at a new area, is there any sort of terrain features or any sort of habitat thing that you kind of look for?
Usually when I'm out of state, I'm covering ground till I find sign. Most of that's done by vehicle or whatever, but I look for creeks, water. I like ridge. I like roost trees, that kind of stuff. And you put all that together, then you start looking for sign. You start looking for tracks in the creek beds. You start looking for, feathers, droppings, that kind of stuff. And then get up somewhere high where you can roost a turkey, where you can hear real good. That's the biggest key, is being able to hear turkeys. Mm-hmm. I do most of my turkey hunt with my ears than I do with anything else. So.
Mm-hmm. How often is it that a Rio or a Miriam will use the same roost tree or the same roost area?
I've got areas where turkeys roost in the same tree every year.
I would imagine that'd be a lot terrain dependent. So if you're hunting a big wide open area and there's just a couple trees in it, then they have no option.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
it's not quite that bad around here, but
right.
In some of the areas out west, I mean, you go to Texas, they don't have any trees. They only got, 6 cottonwoods down in the creek bottom. Your turkeys are going to be in them cottonwoods. So
are you finding that the case then as well with, so you're getting some more mountainous, some more wooded areas? Do you find they're not moving as much as well in them areas too? Or do you find they're relocating throughout the week or whatever,
No, they'll move.
Be here one day.
They'll move. It depends. Like usually in the fall, they'll have a different roost than they do in the spring. So you might find a fall roost that had a bunch of droppings on it and some feathers and all that kind of stuff, and not very many turkeys around it during the springtime. I ran across that in Arizona several times. But then, you start seeing fresh sign scratching and that kind of stuff and droppings. You'll find some roost trees, and birds like to roost in the pines. So,
is there anything, I guess, when you're doing the scouting, when you're trying to find the sign, anything you've noticed that the birds like to kind of gravitate towards?
I like to have some type of an open area, because gobblers like to get in the fields or get into an area where they can be seen and see approaching stuff.
Yeah.
But we like running ridges. Open hardwoods is, I think, the best thing you can hunt. I mean, that's my favorite anyway. I love to get an open hardwood ridge or a hardwood bottom or something. But out west, you got to cover ground most of the time. You're gonna go a ways before you find turkeys, but when you find turkeys, you're usually in them, But that don't mean that they won't move, because they'll travel. You've been out. You talked about Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, all those states. Those birds will move. They'll do a 5-mile lap during the day. You know what I mean? Sometimes they'll roost in the same general area. Sometimes they might be 300 yards over, into a different area. I think sometimes it just depends on where they end up during the day when they're feeding or whatever. And when it starts getting dark, they start looking up, see if they can find a place to fly up to.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds about right for sure.
I don't have any experience out west hunting Merriams or anything like that. I'm just strictly Eastern, so this is all new for me. I'm eating it up.
It's funny because you can see videos sometimes where the turkey will come 300, 400 yards across a wide open field and come right to the guy and have him kill it. And then you go out there and the turkeys gobble like crazy. They'll gobble everything you throw at them, but never come at you. They're just going the other way the whole time. In that situation, you better be moving, otherwise you're going to be left behind.
That's what happened to me in Wyoming. I had, I think this was my first morning there. I got into two birds, and man, I closed the distance. They were still down below in a private field. They were maybe, I don't know. I was able to get into maybe 100 yards from those birds, and then they kind of weren't interested. They gobbled, but they were leaving. And it's so crazy how fast those birds just can get out of earshot. You know, sometimes they're just gone.
Yep.
And I kind of made a little loop, kind of following the private pasture. I did a little bit of a loop on the ridgetop, but I think they were just, gone because I was never able to kind of get back on those birds again.
Yeah, they can move. They can move in a hurry, and it always seems like they know where they're going and they're heading that way. Yeah.
For sure. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Joe. I think I'm going to buy your owl call because it sounded pretty good.
I'm actually looking possibly, when you started hunting in the early 80s and I started, right around the early 90s, and the choices for locator calls up here anyways were pretty slim.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have much to choose from, and I think the owl call that I bought, it was just you could tell it was cheaply made. I forget who made it. And it was just almost shaped like a soup can or something, and it just had a stem coming out of it. And when you blew into it, it sounded like one of them recorders that you got when you're in elementary school in music class.
Yeah. So
that one just kind of went on the shelf, and I never brought that one out. And the crow calls weren't much better. And they didn't have anybody teach me how to use them or anything. So when I used it, it sounded like I was blowing on a kazoo.
Yeah.
So when I first started turkey hunting, locating turkeys with locator calls, it was something I learned to, turkey hunting without having to do.
Yeah.
So now, I'm starting to get into it. I learned owl hoot with my voice, and it does me pretty good.
Yep.
But it just doesn't compare. My voice doesn't compare from what I'm hearing from these owl hooters that you hear nowadays, like the one you were blowing, or some of the other ones you hear some of the guys blowing. So I think I'm probably gonna end up picking one up here just for the volume part of it. I don't seem to get the volume that you can get out of like your call there with my voice.
Yeah, the crow call and the owl hooter can be a weapon. I mean, it can definitely. We usually use the crow call when we're like moving on a turkey. Let's say the turkey's moving off with some hens or hung up or something, and we need to get around and make a move. A lot of times after we move a little bit, we want to spot, try to figure out where the turkey's at if he's not gobbling, and then hit a crow call to get him to try to shot gobble, and give away his position, and then we can move into where we want to be. So it definitely works.
Actually had an instance in Mississippi last spring. It was early spring, so it was probably still in March, but the temperature was like 95 degrees out, and I was cooking. The AC in my truck wasn't working, so I pulled into one of them little impoundments, and I hopped in the water and cooled myself off and cleaned myself up a little bit. And when I got out and I was getting dressed across the impoundment, a crow calls and I hear a turkey gobble. Well, I'm like, sweet. And I'm throwing my clothes on and I'm getting ready to go after it. So I go back out to the road. I drive to the other side of the impoundment. I work my way up in the woods. And just before I put my butt on that tree, I hear, boom! Somebody shot at it. Well, it turns out, and I seen them down there. There was a couple of gentlemen that were actually fishing down on the impoundment on that side of the lake. And when I drove around to get back around where the parking area was, they got back to the parking area, and I asked them if they had got it. And they're like, got what? Did you get that turkey you shot at? Oh, he said, we're fishing. We ain't turkey hunting. I'm like, yeah, you're fishing all right.
Uh-huh.
One of them snuck up into the woods there and tried to shoot that turkey, and he was just closing his trunk before I got there, so I don't know if he had it stuffed in the trunk or not. I'm guessing he probably did.
Yeah.
Are the owl hooters, are they the same as like it's the wood's gonna dictate the volume or the pitch of the call.
Yeah, wood dictates the sound for sure.
So depending on whether you wanted a lower, more mellow owl hoot, or if you wanted a higher, then you'd pick a wood preference like that. So that's probably.
That one's actually a little bit higher pitched than the other two that I have are black limba. Black limba is a softer wood, and so that one is Osage, which is a harder wood. That one's got a little bit higher pitch than the other two.
So now that we've just brought that up, so in your experience, do you think turkeys are more responsive to a higher pitched or a lower pitched owl call?
No, I think this is a lot of times they're shock gobbling to that, or sometimes, they're waking up in the morning when the owls start going. The owls sound different. Sometimes you have a real deep tone owl, and sometimes you got a little higher pitched tone owl. So I think it's just once they start going back and forth at each other, it'll get the turkey to gobble.
I was just curious because it seems when I do my voice, I have better response with my higher hoots.
Yeah.
Than when I throw out lower ones, and it probably would be my guess is when I get the higher ones out, and they say a lot of times when the turkey shock gobbles to a noise, it's because it's in the same frequency range.
Right.
So probably when I'm getting up into that higher pitch, I'm probably getting into that same frequency range as a gobble than compared to if I'm putting out lower.
And most of the time when a turkey will gobble to the owl is when they laugh. That's when they usually will gobble. Most of the time they're not gobbling to the straight hoots. Sometimes they will. I'm not saying they won't. But if you put a few hoots together and then go into a laugh, that's when they'll usually get the gobble. You go into a lot of time a turkey won't gobble that, but if you go they'll gobble to that laugh, and that's when it it triggers them for some reason.
And that may play into that what I was talking about, the higher pitch, because it seems that laugh is a little higher pitched than just the regular hoot.
Yep, it is.
Okay, Joe. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it, and I'll shoot you a message, and I'm gonna place. I'd like to buy an owl hooter.
No problem. Just send me a text and your information, and I'll let you know.
When Andre gets his and I get a chance to look at it, you might be getting a call from me too.
Sounds good.
All right, Joe. You have a good one.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, Joe.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Off the Roost podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram at Off the Roost Calls and on TikTok at Off the Roost Pod. Tune in for future episodes where we'll do our best to keep you informed and try to preserve the heritage that is the wild turkey.